Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Chaos Jar. I'm the announcer and the loud and obnoxious one, J Wes Secord. Hey. Over here we have our host and the big bag of facts, Bad Ben.
Hey.
And as always, we are joined by our good friend, AT Token.
Rule of three, hey.
He's learned comedy, folks. We don't know how. Anyway.
I'm scared.
I'm scared.
Osmosis through the walls.
Do you walk through them?
No, I just put my ear to it so I can hear it through the wall.
The humor just seeps in?
Yeah. Like, is it a liquid that gets on your skin and you just absorb it?
Like a symbiote from Spider-Man? Like,
no, that's the reverse. They absorb the person.
It's true.
So anyway.
And we're off.
As usual, like, rate, subscribe, and review, and all the things that I said out of order.
Send us cheese.
Something about cheese. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BA Chaos Jar. You can follow me at Twitter. And by follow, I just mean ask me some questions. I'm lonely. I'm sad. There's a pandemic going on.
He sits at home and he just watches the Twitter feed over and over and over again.
I just hit the refresh button over and I never...
We're on his third mouse.
How's it going? Oh, yeah.
It like gets stuck loading for a second and you're like,
It's happening!
It's happened!
And then the internet just went out, so it goes...
It was a Twitter addict.
Yeah. So my Twitter is at I'm glad you asked _ you can follow us on Facebook at what are we at now?
It's Chaos Jar Podcast now.
We finally did it.
We're good.
We did it. Hey, man, Sagriff, add party sounds and like the congratulatory horns and shit like that.
It's gonna be one monkey farting.
It is now because you said it. So yes, we're at Chaos Jar Podcast on Facebook, and if you would like to be a patron, you go to patreon.com/chaosjar, and if you put in some money for us, you know, we might be able to produce more episodes and not have to work over it and stuff like that. Plus, you get early access to our bonus episodes, and you can watch the bonus episodes that are already out. Oh, excitement. And if you have friends who aren't really good with the podcast aspect, well, guess what? We have a YouTube channel now too. Chaos Jar Podcast YouTube channel. Check it out. Show your friends. That's the best way for them to know us. And then we'll have all that in the show notes, and we'll have it in the show notes of the YouTube thing, and then we'll be like, everyone will be like, whoa, that's so fucking good. Whoa. And that is all the stuff. So what's going in the jar today, motherfucker?
Well, before we get to that, let's shout out to Ashley because she actually became our first patron today, so she's executive producer now.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Oh my god. So Ashley is somehow just becoming our biggest fan at this point. She's a patron. She's actually helped me acquire several of the mass comics. And she even drew us a picture of Bernard.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, no, she painted it, actually. And it's hilarious because it looks kind of like a weird monkey version of Danny DeVito wearing an Amish hat. So it's
amazing.
I know. I keep telling her to send it to you guys somehow. But I guess she hasn't yet. But it's fucking amazing. I love it. Did you get to see it?
I have. I've seen it in person.
Oh, perfect. That's what I thought. It's amazing. So you guys, we want to send that. Ashley, if you're listening to this, send that to the Twitter. Make sure that other fans get to see the glory that is you and your amazingness. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, in the jar today is going to be Calico Jack.
Oh, man, I love cats.
Yeah.
He's stripy.
He doesn't have any stripes on him.
We are looking at the Octonauts.
Yeah. So,
Octonauts?
Yeah, it's a show.
Aren't they called the Aquanauts?
No, Octonauts.
Is it Octonauts?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they live in a big octopus.
Yeah,
because I have children and get to watch that all the time.
You watch Disney more than I do.
Yeah, I don't watch Disney preschool.
I mean...
So, Calico Jack is Quasi's long-lost grandfather and considered the greatest cat pirate ever. The end. I just joked. We're actually going to talk about the real Calico Jack.
Is he also a cat?
No.
Did you literally set us up with a joke? That's my fucking bit, you motherfucker!
Fight!
Fat fight!
Not too tired for that.
It's just we get in a sumo ring and just like bounce off each other.
And then I have sandwiches.
And us sandwiches.
Time to recharge.
We're gonna need more sandwiches.
Yeah. So, before we talk about Calico Jack the man, we should talk about the Republic of Pirates.
The Calico Jack the cat. Let's go back to Calico Jack the cat.
We're gonna go back to the Octonauts.
The dark lore theories of the Octonauts.
Yeah. And how he became the greatest cat pirate ever. You do know that he had to do some very terrible things.
So now I'm picturing, like, that adorable fucking, like, chibi cat with an eye patch there, and he's, like, executioner styling with a flintlock pistol of someone in the face.
He's got him at the end of a plank, and he's like, that's it? So... Republic of Pirates was the base of a loose confederation of privateers turned pirate in Nassau on New Providence Island from 1706 to 1718.
We're now the rocket.
Nice. So, it wasn't an official state, but it was governed by its own code of conduct known as the Pirate Code. Now, I actually have articles from this pirate code all the way to like the end of the golden age of piracy.
It kind of worked. From
So, yeah.
I hear they're more like guidelines.
That basically. So, did we want to hear these codes? Because
maybe some high.
They're pretty
no,
decent.
that sounds boring. Fucking course we do.
So, Bartholomew Roberts put in these codes. So, code number 1, every man has a vote in affairs of moment, has equal title to fresh provisions or strong liquors at the time of seized, and may use them at pleasure unless scarcity, not an uncommon thing among them, makes it necessary for the good of all to vote a retrenchment. So basically, if they plundered something, they were allowed to have their fair share of it, unless there was a scarcity, and then they would vote how much they're allowed to use.
So, open democracy and equal share?
Basically,
socialism and done.
So, one thing about pirates is that their ships were run basically democratically. Everything was up to a vote.
Fair enough. Everyone's got a blade.
I would think so, though, because if you're on, like, a ship with 90 men, and you're the captain, and you're just trying to be like, no, I say this, and they all mutiny against you, you're fucked. Like...
Well, some of them did get their position because they couldn't get fucked. They could fight that well.
Yeah.
I just have to say, there's something hilarious when there's a patriarchy or matriarchy going on in the world, and then the pirates are like, well, we believe that democratic votes are much, much more effective.
Especially because pirates basically were privateers beforehand, so they were paid by these monarchies to go and like seize and capture and fight ships.
The official ones by the monarchies were corsairs, and the privateers were the mercenaries.
Yeah, and they're you are right. They were and they're like, but the corsairs would hire them out, like privateers out, and they would actually hire. There was like companies that would be used by the state itself as financiers to make these privateers go forward. The problem is they became pirates when these jobs ran out, and especially when the War of Succession went out. That's when the golden age of piracy ended, when the Spanish were no longer at war with the English. So
cool would be like the U.S. hiring out to Blackwater, and then they subcontract it, and then those guys become warlords.
Well, that's just it. Is once you when nobody's paying you anymore, and now you have no job, but all you know is this job.
And you got shit.
What do you do? Yeah, what do you do now? So, article number 2. Every man had to be called fairly in turn by list on board of prizes because over and above their proper share, they were on these occasions allowed a shift of clothes. But if they defrauded the company to the value of the dollar in plate, jewels, or money, marooning was their punishment. If the robbery was only betwixt one another, they contented themselves by slitting the ears and nose of him that was guilty and set him on the shore, not in an uninhabited place, but somewhere where he was sure to encounter hardships. So if you steal or break out of line, you were to be marooned. And if you got into a confrontation with another person, the person who was not the starter of it could cut your ear and nose off and then leave you on a fucking island.
Slit.
Yes, that's slit.
Not necessarily cut off. I could see it just going right here, and I'd be like, "Fuck, that sucks, bro."
I don't think there's a good ending to that.
No, there isn't.
Regardless of how that plays out.
Article number 3. No person to game at cards or dice for money. So no betting.
Interesting.
Oh. That is actually intriguing.
Number 4. The lights and candles are to be put out at 8 o'clock at night. If any of the crew after that hour still remain inclined to drink, they were to do it on the open deck. So no more flames on the inside of the ship after 8 o'clock. And if you want to keep drinking, you got to get drunk on the top of the ship.
That's nobody getting pissed drunk in a corner.
That's the equivalence of, all right, folks, you can keep on drinking, but you can't drink here.
It's also probably just to keep an eye on them. So if shit's going down, you need people to sober up. You need to know what condition the people you have in charge of are in. It's a sensible policy.
Yeah, but like my joke, it was great.
It's just weird to see more sensible policies from ostensibly pirates than they are like the Royal Navy.
Yeah, a lot of these are very, very similar. Like, if you desert your quarters or ship in battle, you're punished by death or marooning. There's one, no boy or woman to be allowed amongst them. If any man were to be found seducing any of the latter sex and carried her to sea, disguised, he was to suffer death. So,
all right, now we're getting to the shitty ones.
I mean, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
The captain and the quartermaster to receive 2 shares of a prize. The master, boatswain, and gunner get 1 share and a half, and the other officers 1 1/4. So, a lot of, like, one of the things that comes out the most, like, that is, like, a huge myth is that the captain gets the most of everything, but he only gets 2 shares. Like, everything's split into shares, and you only get 2 shares. So, it's not so unfair. It's just, he gets a little more than everybody else, basically.
Kind of like a director on a movie. Like, it's just one additional person doing their job.
Yep. John Phillips had very similar ones for his code. He was known as the captain of the Revenge. So his ship was the Revenge. So I can only imagine.
Believe it or not, they're not very spiteful.
Yeah. He was a very peaceful man.
Yeah.
Revenge can be slow.
He had a small one. He had like a small difference. Every man shall obey civil command. The captain shall have 1 full share and a half of all prizes. The master, carpenter, boatswain, and gunner would have 1 share and a quarter, so he's slightly downgraded it a little bit. If any man were to run away or to keep secret of the company, he shall be marooned on 1 bottle of powder, 1 bottle of water, 1 small arm, and a shot. So you're given a gun and you're given basically just enough to shoot yourself.
Isn't that what
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, that was the lore that they chose to use.
It's funny because Calico Jack is the basis of Johnny Depp's Jack Sparrow.
Oh, right. I think you mentioned this before. I don't know why I forgot, actually.
It's been a while.
Shut up.
If any man shall steal anything...
Might help then.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that one wasn't fair. I'm sorry about that.
If any man shall steal anything in the company or game to the value of a piece of 8, he shall be marooned or shot. So it's all very, very similar all the way through for his. It's a lot of, if you lose it, if you do something, you're going to be shot or marooned. There's slightly more civilized ones later on at the end of the golden age of piracy, like unlawful weapons aboard the privateer and stuff like that.
I wouldn't say that's uncivilized. Given what they're working with and how little resources, it seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. One is that there's an Article 7 for Edward Lowe and George Lowther. It was like if good quarters are to be given when craved. So if you want good quarters, you are allowed to have them. But then you have to add more work to it. There's other things that amend it. Yeah. And these are just guidelines. For the most part, they're not really set in stone. They're just more of something for them to use as a guideline as punishment or for something. We're going to see that Calico Jack himself breaks a few of these.
That's the language you used at the beginning?
Yeah. That's from Pirates of the Caribbean.
I see.
What did I say?
You said that they are more like guidelines, which is what Barbossa says.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot. Yeah,
when Keira Knightley's character, I always forget her name in the movie.
Her name was Elizabeth Swann.
There we go. So when Elizabeth Swann is captured by Barbossa, she asks for the right of parley, which it means that you're allowed to have negotiations, but no harm is allowed to come to you as long as you're negotiating.
As I recall, she had nothing to negotiate with.
No, what happened was afterwards he said, burn the village. And she's like, parley, he's like, well, first of all, the accord says that I can't harm you. Nothing about everybody else. And secondly, they're more like guidelines.
Also between pirates, it's not between every which way.
So, piracy in the Bahamas began in 1696, roughly, when privateer Henry Every brought his ship, the Fancy, full of goods and spoils in the Fancy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Into Nassau and bribed the governor with gold, silver, and his ship.
That's what it was, Nassau.
The Fancy, loaded with 50 tons of elephant tusks and 100 tons of gunpowder. He basically just handed him all this stuff and was like, just let us do whatever we want.
Jesus.
The Republic even voted on governors to represent themselves on the inside, so there was actually like a full-on election process on the inside of who would be in charge of the Republic. It was primarily dominated by 2 rivaling pirates, Benjamin Hornigold and Henry Jennings. Hornigold was a mentor to pirates like Edward Teach, also known as Blackbeard, Stede Bonnet, who is also known as the Gentleman Pirate, and Sam Bellamy, and all of them will have future episodes for sure because they're fucking brutal. And Stede Bonnet is a very interesting one because he didn't have to be a pirate ever. He was already very, very wealthy, very, very rich, and instead he decided to go out and be a pirate.
Plus, his name is Steve.
Stede.
Oh, Stede.
Stede. Yeah.
I'm actually disappointed now.
So, Jennings mentored Charles Vane, Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, and Mary Read. All 4 of them will come up in this one. Eventually, there was about 1,000 pirates on Nassau, and they outnumbered the citizens. So, even if the citizens didn't like what was going on, there was nothing they could do about it.
I'm surprised they stayed if that was the case.
Yeah. This led to the pirates electing Blackbeard as their magistrate. So,
I mean, that's amazing if you think about it.
Yeah.
That is Jane as your PR.
So when Woodes Rogers was appointed governor of the Bahamas, he offered a royal pardon and a commission to any pirate who willingly turned themselves in and gave up their life of pirating. Benjamin Hornigold accepted this offer and was given the commission of hunting down other pirates who refused to take the deal. Blackbeard and Charles Vane had evaded capture, but this kind of brought piracy to an end under this program. So when he showed up on the island, he had 7 full ships full of men. So he came fully ready to just fight it out with the pirates. But his original thing was he showed up with all these men and then went, we can fight, or I pardon you and you get to work for me. Like
criminals turned bounty hunters.
So
Men of opportunity, shall we say.
So yeah. I just picture Benjamin Hornigold standing there being like, fight you, work for you, fully pardoned.
He was also getting
fight
to
you.
Well where you wouldn't necessarily.
And then on the reverse end, he's still going.
You need to.
It's just me opening and closing a squeaky door.
So let's talk about Calico Jack himself.
Yes, Catman.
The man, the myth, the legend.
So, Calico Jack was born John Rackham. By most accounts, he was born December...
Rackham, I barely even know him.
So, by most accounts, he was born December 26, 1682, in the Kingdom of England. Not really sure where, because there's not a lot known about his early life, or like his childhood, any of it. Nothing's really known. He first shows up in the records in 1718, serving under Captain Charles Vane as the quartermaster of the Brigantine Ranger. They operated at New Providence in the Bahamas, so out of the Republic.
As corsairs or part of the Royal Navy?
So Charles Vane was originally a privateer and then became a pirate, and Rackham originally signed up to be a privateer, probably. Not really knowing what happened, but he probably did sign up to be a privateer and then came into piracy because...
Fair enough. Follow the will of your mentor.
Yeah. Vane and the crew robbed a few ships outside of New York City before they ran into a French man of war, which immediately gave chase. The French ship was twice the size of the Brigantine, so Vane ordered a retreat out of caution because it's a lot bigger than us.
Who the fuck's gonna fight a man of war?
However, Rackham didn't support this idea and argued that the man of war would have a lot more riches on board than their normal targets, adding that if they were to capture the vessel, they would also have a larger ship for their fleet.
That's ambition and a half.
I know those jellyfish are huge, but...
Yeah, they form colonies together. And they become the largest sea creature ever.
Do you have a random knowledge of the man of war jellyfish?
Some.
Game over.
I honestly, frankly, I'm too impressed to be upset.
It finally happened.
Yeah. So, this was put to a vote amongst the crew, like all things. And there's 91 men aboard this crew. Only 15 supported Charles Vane's decision to retreat.
Really?
Yeah. However, Vane rejected the decision of the majority and stated that captain's orders are final, and they fled the man of war. So he broke the democracy.
I mean, under those circumstances, that seems fair. The only way to take a man of war like that would be to take it from behind, which is...
And they're pursuing you now.
Yeah.
Take it from behind.
I mean, if there was an island, they could circle it, but what?
The man of war is going to take you from behind.
Yeah. If there was an island, we could circle it.
Foreplay.
So, this didn't sit well with Rackham at all. And on November 24th, 1718, he called for a vote on Vane's captaincy. Charles Vane was labeled a coward and removed from his power by the crew, with Rackham taking up the mantle and claiming his life as Calico Jack. So he went from being John Rackham, the quartermaster, to Captain Calico Jack.
It's just a direct promotion. That's in line.
Vane and the 15 supporters were given the other ship in their fleet, along with a decent supply of ammo, supplies, and goods, and sent on their way. So they didn't just maroon them on an island. They were just
realistically.
yeah, see you later.
We'll meet again.
Despite his campaign against Vane, Jack seemed to just basically focus on easy targets that were close to shore. So ones that were probably repairing their ship and stuff like that, they're already on the down and they're just taking advantage of it.
Sensible.
He mainly robbed small ships. This seemed to be honing his skills a bit.
Was he a single ship at that point?
Yeah, at this point.
So that does make sense, because without a second ship, you can't lock people in.
So he eventually did capture other ships, though. Jack sailed into Nassau and took advantage of the amnesty to obtain a royal pardon and commission from Governor Woodes Rogers.
He took it?
He took it. Woodes Rogers was we're going to talk about him for a second. Woodes Rogers was actually a former privateer who came from a pedigree of seafaring folk. So basically, his grandfather, his father, his mother's grandfather, his mother's father were all really high-ranking admirals and had done a ton of work with the Royal Military and stuff.
Admiral's no joke.
Yeah, even his father-in-law was a rear admiral.
So why the fuck was he a privateer?
Just because it was the War of Succession, so he wanted to join up in some capacity.
Fair.
He had a massive amount of success capturing Spanish ships and was on a long voyage that was heavily invested into by financiers, right? He was smart and a bit ahead of his time. He had actually stocked his ship with lime to fight off scurvy, which was not a universal practice at the time. However, he did have a lot of challenges as well. His crew tried to mutiny once due to an order of not plundering a neutral Swedish ship. When he broke up the mutiny, he actually executed every person that was part of this mutiny, and if they that was a higher ranking for the mutiny, and if they were a lower ranking, he just made them basically serve a harsh imprisonment at the bottom of the ship.
That doesn't seem out of line, considering what's at stake.
So a great deal of his crew also deserted or were dismissed, so he would just dismiss them if he felt that they weren't loyal or...
Presumably at a port or just marooned?
Probably both. This led to him needing to recruit more men. Rogers spent 3 years circumnavigating the globe. When he returned, he had all of his original ships, and most of his crew had survived. He was the first person to ever do this.
That's insane.
He even managed to save marooned Andrew Selkirk, which is a feat that made him a national hero, and he was appointed the governor of Bahamas to deal with the piracy problem after this. Not only did he save this guy and became a national hero, but because he came back with all of his original ships and most of the men, the people who invested into this tripled their profits. It was just a huge thing. We're also going to talk about Andrew Selkirk because he's got a really interesting story.
Not tonight or tonight?
Tonight.
Oh. Ooh.
So, Selkirk was a Scottish privateer who spent 4 years and 4 months from 1704 to 1709 as a castaway on an uninhabited island in the South Pacific.
Great.
In September 1704, after serving as a buccaneer for a number of years with Captain Dampier, Selkirk struck out on his own and joined Captain Stradling. They arrived on an island known as Maza Tierra, or closer to land in Spanish. Selkirk had major concerns over whether the vessel was seaworthy and wanted to anchor so they could make the necessary repairs. He outright stated and refused to get on the ship, stating that he would rather stay on the island than board a leaking vessel.
So they did so.
Well, they took him up on the offer and left Selkirk on the island with a musket, a knife, a hatchet, a cooking pot, a Bible, bedding, and some clothes.
That's pretty nice.
And they refused to let him back on board. So basically, go fuck yourself.
I mean, they gave him a whole Bible?
Yeah.
It's Tinder.
Did you say Tinder? Oh, as in the...
Not the app.
It's Tinder. Swipe right.
Jesus. Peter.
Mike.
Just swiping on them.
So this actually proved to be a blessing in disguise because the ship did flounder and Stradling and his surviving crew were forced to surrender to the Spanish, where they were harshly imprisoned.
No shit.
Because... So Selkirk initially stayed on the shore, scanning the horizon for ships, hoping that they would come back for him. And he survived on spiny lobsters. However, eventually hordes of sea lions came onto the shore because it was their mating season and drove him inland.
They will fuck you up.
So he had to go inland to get away from them.
Sea lions are cute, but they are so aggressive.
I just wanted the story to end with he got fucked by sea lions. Like, they came in on mating season, they're like, whoa, look at this tasty treat.
A reverse Siren.
That's how sea lions orgasm.
You heard it here, folks.
So Selkirk was actually pretty lucky. Was pretty lucky to be the island that he was on. There were feral goats that were introduced by early sailors. Wild turnips. It was actually indigenous cabbage trees and Shinu brutes. He did have a rat problem, but he somehow managed to domesticate the feral cats on the island to hunt the rats.
Nice.
So he basically like took all these cats and was like, "You eat the mice, like eat the rats, get them." Like,
hey, you cat thing, go there. And he was like, and they were like, well. He makes a point, and then they go and fight. They go fight the rats. like they get armor,
and that's how we got Calico Jack.
I love like the image of cats. They're like little rats in armor, and I don't know why, but like bordering on like Mongolian armor too. That was the weird part. I don't know why that image came to my brain, but still.
Wow. It had to be Mongolian armor too.
Well, that was just I pictured an armor, and I'm like, is that Sarah? No, that's Mongolian armor. What the hell?
So, Selkirk's life improved when he moved inland. He built 2 huts, one for cooking, one for sleeping, out of pepper trees. He forged a new knife from the barrel hoops that were left on the island.
Question, how do you cook a hut?
With fire.
Well, first you strangle it with a chain.
You know...
Where do you get the bikini girl?
Somehow, who would have thought that the fucking Mongolian joke would just continue on so well?
It works.
One hut for eating, one hut for living in.
Oh my god. So, he forged a new knife. He eventually ran out of gunpowder and had to do all his hunting on foot. He got badly... Pardon?
He's saying he was shooting animals?
Yeah. He was badly injured at one point during one of these hunting chases, and had managed to escape a broken back because his prey had cushioned his fall. So basically, they must have fell off like a cliff, and he just landed.
That is amazing.
That sounds like a comedy film.
It does seem
where you're just like,
it's funny because
I got dinner.
It's funny because a podcast I was listening to a couple weeks ago mentioned hunting animals by dropping out of trees and just trying to strangle them to death. Are you kidding me? And this is a real thing, and I have watched people do this before because I lived in hunting country.
Why would you have at least a shiv?
Okay,
but it's not the sport; it's the sport of it.
The fact that they would drop, they would make themselves like these big deer nests. They would sit in deer nests up above, or just climb trees, wait for the fucking deer or something to go underneath, and then just flop down on them and try and strangle. And I thought that this was a thing that was only for my area. No, this other podcast mentioned it, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? This actually happens?"
Think about it. When's the last time you looked?
I like the image too of them dropping fat guys.
Well, they are tree snakes that literally do that.
You got someone like Chris Farley coming in. It's like, all right, what?
That would be the python equivalent.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna get this deer right now. Here he comes. And then he just flops, and then the deer is like splattered,
ironically,
as he bounces on his stomach.
Frig. So, he escaped a broken back by doing that.
By lucking out. He didn't do anything.
So, he also had...
That's a good point.
He also had 2 altercations with Spanish ships that docked on the island, and being a Scot and a Scottish privateer, he knew that he would most likely be beaten to death by the Spanish crew.
Also, they couldn't understand him for shit.
Yeah, so he ran...
I can't understand them for shit.
So he ran and hid until they left. In fact, at one point he was hiding in a tree, and one of the Spanish privateers stopped.
I was gonna stab it. That was where I was going.
Stopped and started urinating on the tree that he's in, and then they gave up and left. And I had the same thought because all I could think to myself was he fucking just is like, you know what, fuck it, I got this guy.
I'm gonna strangle him.
Yeah. Wait a minute. This works on the goats.
I mean, it happens more than you think. I've had people take a shit within a foot of it.
I like the idea. He's also like strangling, and then there's a stream of piss going.
Paint the walls.
Yes, the walls of the forest.
Walls. It's hitting his hut, and he's like, "That's my hut."
I'm sorry, hut.
So he was eventually saved. He was eventually saved by Woodes Rogers, who referred to Selkirk as the governor of the island because he'd been on this island for 4 fucking years.
May I just say, Woodes Rogers.
I know.
Sounds like the ye old equivalent of Grizzly Adams.
Yeah.
Like, he comes in and he's best friends with a bear. Like, hi, how's it going? I don't know what
English
Grizzly
accent?
Adams actually talks like, but still. I'm Woodes Rogers. Okay, now he's a sportscaster.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Woodes Rogers.
The thing is, he'd have a British accent, so like you're completely.
Hello, I'm I'm Woodes Rogers. Pleased to meet you.
And presumably it wouldn't stick after being at sea for so long.
It's funny because it sounds like you're the Joker trying to like.
I want to see a pirate Joker so much.
Have you seen Samurai Joker?
No.
There's a Batman movie called Ninja Batman. It's an anime, but it's all like CGI, and somehow the Gotham criminals and Batman get sent to feudal Japan for no particular reason.
So, Selkirk also helped Rogers though because his one of the reasons they had stopped at the island was that his crew were suffering from scurvy because they were low on supplies. So he caught 2 or 3 goats a day until the crew had recovered. He was then made second mate and given the command of his own ship eventually, the Increase. That's what it was called.
Okay.
So he did eventually return to England. He had been away for 8 years.
You know what? When they were low on food, what did they do? They increased.
They increased it.
You know, they're low on men. What'd they do? They increased the number.
So he had a wild life after his rescue and after his return to England as well. In 1713, he was imprisoned for 2 years due to a fight with a shipwright in Bristol. So all I can think is this guy served fucking 4 years on a fucking island. I don't think a prison's going to do very much to him. He then met a dairymaid known as Sophia Bruce in 1717, and the pair ran off to elope but didn't go through with it. So they ran off and didn't even get married.
How do you think he knew it was his wife?
The churning.
Because his penis
increased. So
he must have been married a lot. To a goat or two.
Yeah. In 1720, he married widow Frances Candice, and she was a innkeeper. So she stayed behind at the inn when he eventually went back out to sea, but died of yellow fever in 1721. So they got married, and a year later he died.
Oh, man.
And he was buried at sea.
I hope the capacity of that inn increased.
By one.
So his time on the island is what inspired Daniel Defoe's book, The Life and Surprising Adventures of Robinson Crusoe.
Oh, I love that actor.
Yep.
Daniel Defoe.
Yeah, he's the one who he was the Boondock Saints and all that. Yeah,
sure. Whatever.
He was the gay one.
So the island that he was marooned on,
I prefer the 6
is now known as Robinson Crusoe Island. So he basically became this famous person for that.
So this guy is the basis for Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah,
that's actually really cool. I actually have on DVD a short-lived Robinson Crusoe television series.
Yeah, I remember that show like from years back.
Yeah, it holds up. It's actually still pretty cool. It kind of feels a little like the old Sam Raimi Hercules.
Yeah.
Except like it was made quite a few years later in like the early 2000s, so it had a little bit more production value.
So, back to Calico Jack. After securing the pardons and commission, he quickly returned to piracy and captured a small Jamaican vessel known as the Kingston.
So he just took the bounty and was like, yeah. Free money.
Which eventually became his prize ship. However, capturing the ship had been within sight of Port Royal and a bounty was put out on him.
Oh, he got spotted.
Eventually, in February of 1719, they caught up to him while he was anchored. And though he and most of his men had managed to hide, the ship and loot aboard the ship were recaptured. So
caught with his pants down, as it were.
Yeah. Rackham and his men returned to Nassau and asked Woodes Rogers again for a pardon and a commission. He managed to convince Rogers
seriously
that Charles Vane had forced him and his crew to become pirates, knowing that Rogers despised Vane. So Vane issued him the pardons and allowed him and the men to stay in Nassau.
I'm Woodes Rogers, and I'm here to give you another pardon.
Did he get a second bounty?
No.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
So this introduces us to Anne Bonny, who is another character in this, and like I mentioned earlier, she was also a pirate at some point.
My name is Anne Bonny.
There's too many female pirates of note.
No. So Anne Bonny was born Anne Brennan in County Cork, Ireland. Her father was a lawyer named William Cormac, who had an affair with a servant woman named Mary Brennan, and this resulted in her birth. William eventually moved to London to get away from his wife's family, and brought Anne with him and began dressing her up as a boy and teaching her to be a law clerk and called her Andy. When William's wife realized what he was doing with his illegitimate daughter, she stopped sending him an allowance. So she was paying him. So Cormac...
But Mom!
Yeah. So Cormac then moved with Anne and her mother to the province of Carolina, and they settled in Charlestown, which is now Charleston, South Carolina.
It's actually not too far from Canada Town, USA.
We're in Dakota. Middle Dakota.
Yeah. Clearly the geography of this place is not... Even though we have a serious specific location... We're as anonymous as The Simpsons Springfield.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's how it works.
We live in some sort of dimension here.
Yeah, exactly.
So, eventually William managed to finance a plantation just outside of town. So he built a plantation out there and did what he wanted to do with the plantation, and I'm sure he had slaves.
Slaves.
Anne's mother died when she was 12. Anne was noted to have red hair and be considered a good catch despite her fiery temper. The fiery temper...
Did you seriously just say that?
Yes. The fiery temper brought her to allegedly stab a servant girl at the age of 13.
It's a bit more than a fiery temper. Yeah. Fucking hell.
She was eventually married...
Yeah, I've seen worse.
She eventually...
Not for long,
have you met my ex-girlfriend?
No, only one of us would make it out.
That was so bad. That was like 90s comedian.
Yeah.
Differences between men and women.
So Anne eventually met James Bonney, a poor and small-time pirate.
Excuse me?
James Bonney.
Bonnie? James Bonnie?
James Bonney.
Nice hat.
A poor... So he was a poor and small-time pirate who was hoping to cash in on William's estate. She ended up marrying him. However, it didn't go well for anybody because William did not approve of the union and disowned his daughter. So now she has no claim in the estate. And Annie got really mad and retaliated by burning her father's plantation to the ground.
I mean, serves you right.
So sometime between 17...
She really was a fiery redhead.
So, sometime between 1714 and 1718, the Bonnies moved to Nassau, where James received the king's pardon because he was a pirate. And he became an informant to Woodes Rogers. When he arrived on the island and would report all pirate activity to the area, in the area to Rogers so that he could crack down on the pirates.
Did they say how?
So he frequented like pirate bars and things like that, or would like go on these missions and like talk about doing it, but never get involved. Anne hated her husband's work, like hated it. This led to her becoming very distant from him, and eventually she started frequenting the pirate pubs, which then made her run into Calico Jack.
Whoa!
And
Whoa! I didn't know he was in the story.
Yeah, totally.
He doesn't show up every now and then.
And then she pet him behind the ear. All right, so
I was kicking my leg. I just realized radio show that wouldn't be noticed.
Yep. So Jack and Anne began to have an affair and fell in love. Eventually, Jack offered a large amount of money to James Bonney if he were to divorce her. So, like, he went and was just like, I will give you all of this if you just let her go.
Like, I'm not sure if I can get rid of my wife.
Yes, Dr. Venture.
No!
He's Sean Connery.
He's Sean Connery. As James Bonney. Bonnie. James Bonney.
Stay and shake, not stirred.
Shaken, not stirred.
All right. So James refused and threatened to beat Jack to death.
Oh, that'll go well.
I'll beat your ass, you little piece of shit.
So James,
Dr. Venture or not?
James,
What? How is this Dr. Venture?
The father, not Rusty.
Yeah, still not
He
Dr.
does say that. Anyways.
So James then brought the relationship up with Governor Rogers, who trumped up charges against Anne for adultery. So Jack and Anne...
Seriously?
Yeah.
Just fucked everybody.
Yeah. So Jack and Anne decided to leave Nassau behind and hit the high seas again. But they voided Jack's pardon in doing so because they stole a ship belonging to John Ham.
What?
Yeah, John Ham. That was his name.
Wow, I didn't know how old he was.
He is an immortal.
So...
Yeah, like...
The new Rob Lowe.
He's still doing really well now. Like, he's doing those Skip the Dishes commercials and...
If we could only look that good at that age.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
So Anne would dress as a man in order to avoid the attention of the crew, and because
Anne would dress as a man.
Yeah, which isn't uncommon for her because her father tried to do that to her.
Let me go back.
I know.
Anne was dressed as a man. It's man. Except,
we so need video.
It's an Anne connected to,
There's no way to get the hand signals across.
The hand signals are irrelevant.
I think it's the most entertaining part.
Oh, wow. So entertaining. Everyone should be entertained right now.
You look like Homer while he's sinking into the quicksand. So the pair actually were like very, very good at the job, mainly because Anne really led the charge. She was the better pirate out of the two.
Sounds like she was aggressive as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Works out.
So it seemed to be a good role for them, and they captured many vessels and actually would often recruit crew members from the captured vessels. So they would take the vessel and be like, we can either like ditch you or kill you, or you can be with us. Eventually Anne fell pregnant, and Jack landed in Cuba for her to give birth to their son. There's no record of what happened to their son from there.
Smart.
and then rejoined Jack, and they set sail again. We're also going to introduce another woman named Mary Read, because she plays a huge part in this as well. Mary Read was an English woman born in 1685. Her mother had been married to a sailor, and they had a son. However, her mother's husband was lost at sea, and this was also when Mary's mother discovered that she was pregnant as the result of an extramarital affair.
Oh, shit.
Mary's brother died during the pregnancy, so once Mary was born, her mother would dress her up as the dead son, named her Mark, and then kept this rouse going in order to get financial support from her late husband's mother.
I mean, there's a logic to it, but fucking hell.
They kept this up for most of her, childhood.
Well, probably the father never saw the kid.
Well, not even just that, but the father was dead.
Well, the ostensible claimed father. So.
Yeah. So the act of being male worked really well for Mary, who later, as Mark Read, joined the British military in disguise and proved to be an avid sailor and a very great soldier. Eventually, however, she fell in love with a Flemish soldier and had to give up her disguise. They married, and she used her commission money from all her years in the Navy to purchase an inn in the Netherlands. However, her husband died early on in the marriage, and she returned to her disguise as a man and joined the Dutch military. Eventually, she quit and headed to the West Indies, so into Nassau. The ship that she was on board was then captured by pirates, and she just jumped with joy at joining the pirate crew, who still think that she's a man.
Nice.
She did eventually get a king's pardon in Nassau and started working as a privateer until she participated in a mutiny and became a pirate again. Sometime in 1720, she came across Calico Jack and Anne Bonny and joined their crew. Both of them believed her to be a man. August 22nd, 1970, fucking... we jumped way ahead.
That would be fun.
August 20th.
I want to get back to John Hamm!
Yeah.
Clearly he's still around!
So August 22nd, 1720, she helped them steal an armed sloop named the William from Nassau.
The William?
The William.
The Willie?
The Willie.
William or the Wilhelm?
Is the Willie. The William.
The Willie?
It's spreading.
Look what you did.
The Willie. At the William.
Penis.
Anyways, eventually Bonnie revealed to Reed that she was a woman because she was attracted to Reed's male persona. So she wanted to fuck her and thinking that she was a man. So then she revealed this, and then Reed in turn revealed that she was also a woman. And to abate the jealousy of Calico Jack, Bonnie let Jack in on the secret.
Oh, okay.
The relationship between the two is thought to have been sexual, but never confirmed. There's a lot of paintings of them fighting together. There's a lot of stories of them fighting together. There's actually theories about how they kept their...
Wait, which two? The lesbians?
Bonnie and Reed.
Oh, okay, because I gotta say... If this is turned into female love, you've pulled me in 100%.
I think I've seen that porno before.
I'm not. I love lesbians. I love lesbian romance, whatnot. This is a legit thing. Stop looking at me like it was a joke. It's a legit thing.
No part of me thinks this is a joke. That's not what that expression is.
You have the biggest shit-eating grin on your fucking face. So
there was a lot of theories about how they hid their sex from the male-dominated field because they're obviously female, and they had to really hide it. There was an account from one of the victims of these pirates, Dorothy Thomas, who described them as wearing men's jacket and long trousers and handkerchiefs tied around their heads. And each of them had a machete and a pistol in their hands, and they cursed and swore to the men to murder her, Dorothy. Thomas then recorded that she knew they were women from the largeness of their breasts.
So they weren't even bound.
Yes and not.
I thought at least bind your breasts, wear a longer coat to hide your hips.
I would assume that they would wear a breech or something in order to hold it in. But
I just use tape.
Good to know.
This isn't my normal bust size.
It's augmented.
It's usually much larger.
So, after they stole the William, Governor Rogers issued a proclamation declaring Jack and his crew as pirates in September of 1720. The proclamation was published in October 1720, and this created another warrant for their arrest. Pirate hunter Jonathan Barnett and former pirate Jean Bovadis, who actually will have an episode of his own because he has this really long and amazing story about how he got into a fight with Benjamin Hornigold, and it turned into this 5-year war between the two of them, and it was over something like a flipped coin. Like,
I mean, that sounds about right if you think about it.
I'm in.
Yeah.
That sounds like the John Wick pirate stories.
Pirates are so petty you can't help but enjoy a story. It's amazing.
Exactly. This is why you're friends with us.
That's how he got you in the cage.
By flipping a coin.
I flipped it into the cage and he was like, I'll get it.
Whoa! Gold! Shiny! I need to bring it back to my nest.
Yes.
Wow, you went way different.
Yeah, you're a magpie now. That's how it works. You're.
He doesn't even see you as human. Wow. That went like way left field.
He's all the tokens.
Yeah, that's true.
Bird tokens.
Even those that identify as not human. Like,
Well, I mean, the amount of people who call me that.
So, Jack and his crew came across a small vessel with 9 English pirates aboard and invited them onto their vessel for a bout of drinking in Dry Harbor Bay, Jamaica, which I think is so crazy that they're going to have a drinking thing in Dry Harbor. Like,
Also, Jamaica, kind of infamous for what it is.
yeah. So this is when Barnett came across them and attacked. Jack and most of the crew were too drunk to fight, so Bonnie and Reed led a fight with only one other pirate that was sober to help them. However, the end result was the capture of Calico Jack and Bonnie and Mary Reed. I just love the idea that they're all so drunk and they get attacked and then they're just like, we're too drunk for this. I can't.
There is a point where if your stability isn't good enough, you're just going to slice off your own toes.
And then just watching these two women be like, fuck them up! Like,
Fuck him up, really?
With no context, that is the sexiest thing ever.
We always knew
Again,
what he was into.
Again, I've seen that porno. So,
Was that not the most expensive porno of all time?
something like that. It had such a...
Oh, no, are you talking about Pirates
porno.
2? Yeah,
It was the second one.
It was the second one. It was the highest budgeted porn film ever made.
Nice.
I don't know how much it grossed, but it was the highest
I didn't even
budget.
know there was a second one.
So,
Yeah, it had like CGI and everything. It's kind of crazy and insane.
Wait, CGI in porn?
Yeah, there's a version of the movie where they like legit cut out the porn because they thought the movie itself
It was its own merit.
Yeah,
I mean, that's fair.
And even in the porno, the porn scenes are like really undercut.
By the actual story.
No, like they editing wise, they're shorter.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
they're like a lot faster paced and a lot quicker, and then they're done, and then they just move on to the thing because they really wanted to show how much effort they put into the actual movie itself. It's kind of impressive.
it is. So, they were brought to the Spanish Town in November of 1720.
Hey, I've been there. It's a lot like Canada Town. Spanish.
They were convicted of piracy and sentenced to hang on November 18th, 1720. Calico Jack, George Featherstone, Richard Corner, John Davis, and John Howell were all executed. Jack was then gibbeted on display
He was gibbeted?
on a small islet at the main entrance of Port Royal, which is now known as Rackham's Cay.
What's that?
So gibbeted is when they put you on basically like a structure where you're dead and they've just hung you out there to let your body be like...
It's a display of death. It's quite dishonorable.
And it's basically like a message to other pirates that we will do this to you.
He did betray an oath twice over.
Yeah,
There is a precedent, but fuck it.
So Anne Bonny and Mary Read both claimed to be pregnant, known as pleading the belly, and this granted them...
It was a thing.
It granted them stays of execution until their conditions could be verified. Mary Read would die in prison April 28th, 1721, from a violent fever that was either attributed to her pregnancy or childbirth. But since there's no records of a child being born, it's assumed that she perished while pregnant. Her burial record reads Mary Read, pirate. Literally, that's it.
Pirate.
What else would they say?
So Anne Bonny has no record of being released or executed. Her fate was basically lost to history, though there is a burial record in the town in Jamaica where her trial was that lists an Anne Bonny without the E at the end of the N on December 29th, 1733. Charles Johnson, author of A General History of Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates, which was published in 1724, wrote, "She continued in prison to the time of her lying in, and afterwards reprieved from time to time. But what is become of her since, we cannot tell. Only this we know, that she was not executed."
So is that to say she served her time well?
I'm guessing she must have served a little bit of time in prison and then was released. I have a feeling she probably had the baby and they just let her out through like some sort of mercy on that. But the problem is, Johnson, who wrote this book, and a lot of like pirate facts come from this book, he should always be taken with a grain of salt because he is notorious for having unreliable stories. Yes. So it is believed that
Well, regardless, I am getting really cool story inspiration from these two ladies.
Yeah.
Like, why did they make a movie about fucking Calico there? Let's go with them.
We're going to talk about them afterwards anyways, and I think that it might be a cool overflow episode to talk about them because there's a video game with all these characters inside of it.
In the video game.
So
it makes me think of Zoolander in the computer.
So Anne was allowed to visit Jack once before his execution. Rather than consoling him, she scolded him by saying, "Had you fought like a man, you need not hang like a dog."
Damn.
Whoa. Woo! So Jack is actually infamous not just for some of the escapades that he was, but for two other very important reasons. One, he was one of the early pirates knowingly sailing with females aboard. And the second is his flag, a skull and crossed swords over a black background.
Oh, cool. The Jolly Roger?
Yeah.
Is that what that one was called?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that was his flag.
Oh.
And that's their story.
Wow, that honestly was phenomenal. Honestly, why are we waiting for the overflow? Like, I think the video game thing is prevalent to this subject.
There is a very recent video game that I'm sure you've played, and all these characters are within it. Black Flag.
I have not played
Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
I actually have not played any of the Assassin's Creed.
Really?
There's a reason for it, mostly just because they were being pushed out yearly at a way too fast pace, and they have way too much content. I was just like, no, okay.
See, that's one of my favorite things about them is the history, but I also know that they take liberties with their history. For instance, in Black Flag, you actually break Anne Bonny and Mary Read out of prison.
Mm.
But as we saw, Mary Read did die in prison, and we don't know what happened to Anne.
Yeah, but it's worth noting, the records for all of those are rubbish.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing.
Particularly with anyone with fame.
I think people should really not get too stingy about fictional recreations of history. Like, you can be accurate to what the character was like, or the person was like, But if something changes from the history in the story, you don't get all, it's not historically accurate.
Well, what I do love about it, too, is they actually created stories to, for instance, explain some of the mysteries of the world using the story of the video game. So in Black Flag, you do meet Edward Teach, Blackbeard, and you meet Stede Bonnet.
That one's so tragic.
You don't... And so you find out that Stede Bonnet only became a pirate because he helps the main character. I forget his name, James something, but he helps the main character.
Convoy.
Something like that.
Yeah. I oddly kind of know.
But he helps the main character get in line in the city that he's in, and then that kind of ropes him into piracy. And then he's saved by Blackbeard, and in being saved by Blackbeard, he decides to join up with Blackbeard, which is funny because in reality, Stede Bonnet and Blackbeard did have an alliance at one point. So they just kind of roped it all together into a nice, easy story.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these characters do get featured inside of Assassin's Creed.
I've been actually meaning to pick up and try the pirate one, just because after the main story kind of ends with the third one, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Is the Pirates one Black Flag and I think Rogue, because I saw them in a collection.
So
essentially.
Are they standalone enough?
They're standalone enough, yes. The
overarching story might be a little less.
The first one goes from Altair,
I'm aware of the main
Crusades.
series story.
And then there's Ezio, which is a huge chapter of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
I
didn't play them, but I did watch people play.
So then in the third one, you're introduced to a Templar, like an assassin that turned Templar. And I forget his name too. Thomas. Yeah. Thomas Hatham. And he fathers a child with an Indian woman, like a native woman, and that introduces the main character of Assassin's Creed 3.
Yeah, Connor.
Yeah, Connor. And you're introduced to a black assassin who is a freed slave. And he is actually the main villain of Rogue, which is a funny term because when you meet him, he's much older, he's lost his creed, like he's lost his group, and he has a leg injury of some sort. And Rogue explains all of it. And then in Black Flag, it's actually James Hatham is actually the grandfather of Connor. So the two main characters are kind of linked in this like semi way. And at one point you do play he goes back to England after being a pirate and taking the pardon and going back to England, and that's when he has his family, and that's what causes Hatham from the first one, like from the third one, to become a character, and then that creates Connor. It's just kind of funny how it all interlocks. But it comes full circle.
But for the most part,
it's standalone enough because it doesn't have very much connection with anything, and you're not in and out of the Animus.
Right. I did know about that. Actually, funny thing, Watch Dogs is in the same universe as Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Because you actually assassinate in the first Watch Dogs, or maybe it was the second one, I can't remember, the CEO president dude of the video game company in the pirate one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really cool.
And there's a whole scene after the assassination that you go up to the office when they're investigating the assassination, which is...
Oh, really?
It's a cool link.
Oh, that is really cool. Okay. So, that was on the main episode, so I thought that was a fairly good tie-in, so I think we could have... Getting her on that tangent seemed okay to me. So anyway, folks, that was Chaos Jar. If you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, you can follow us at BA Chaos Jar. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, all the usual stuff. You can send me questions at I'm Glad You Asked _ on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook at Chaos Jar Podcast. We did it!
We're there!
Woo! I don't know if Sagraf will end up putting the sounds in, so I'm just going beep.
And that that party horn.
Yeah.
We'll put the highs.
Yeah. I got a little too into that. You can become a patron on patreon.com/chaosjar. Feel free to send us a demone. We'll put a shout out as being one of our producers. You'll get early access to our bonus episodes. And you can just watch the bonus episodes that are already out on fucking the patreon.com/chaosjar. Yeah, I said it twice. And if your friends aren't very tech savvy in the podcast department, send them to our YouTube channel at Chaos Jar Podcast. They'll have a blast. They get to enjoy our shit. They all come out at the same time. Woo! I'm really full of fucking energy. Anyway, that's our show. It'll all be in the show notes. Have a good night. Have a good night. Have a good night.